Hey guys, so just real quick, two things. My phone's almost dead because apparently the charging cable at the power end was slightly unhooked last night. So I've got like almost no charge. But then I'm ready for school so that as soon as I'm done here with our IVF appointment, I can head straight in. Chad and I drove separately. I'm actually feeling pretty good. I'll be lucky to make the second half of my school first class, but that's okay. Yeah, so I'll check in afterwards and kind of let you know, but I'll probably be doing maybe a check-in tonight because it will be a mad dash to get to school and not use all of my battery in between. All right, love you guys. Talk to you soon. Been quite a while since I picked up the camera. I am trying to work out if I need to, perhaps that helps a little bit with the light. Anyway, so it has been a couple days since I checked in. We had our appointment and so initially our doctor was kind of saying maybe we should do the transfer, but said it's totally up to us. And so he's like, what are you thinking? So I kind of just said that as Chad and I had been talking, before my eggs get any older, while we can still be covered for bulk billing, because we didn't have the greatest results in embryos to freeze, and before having to wait for another loss before doing a retrieval again, that's probably what we were aiming towards, but wanted to know his opinion. He's like, I don't need to hear any more. I'm happy to sign that off as bulk billing and going ahead with another retrieval. He is almost going to half my dose. He did also warn us that if I did not stimulate enough during this round for bulk billing, that if we had to cancel the round due to starting it but then not having enough embryo follicles to do the retrieval, that he would probably have to cancel it and we'd still have to pay for it. So I was on 175, which he's like, I would start someone your age on as like a base starting thing, so it's not like maybe 150, but really 175 is probably what he would have recommended for someone like me. And my tests beforehand, my levels do not indicate that I would be a high risk for OHSS, or ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. So he's like, but due to your result, obviously this is something that happens for you. So initially he was going to drop me down to 100, and now remember, I've been up to 200 before. So at 175 he was going to drop me down to 100, and then he's like, if we're going bulk billing, he's like, I think 125 I would feel confident doing that, where like it would be enough to stimulate, but hopefully not overstimulate. And the hope is, if I'm not overstimulated with too many follicles, that perhaps the quality of the eggs that we get will be better if it's a smaller collection versus such a large collection, and then potentially the quality not being as good. So that was kind of indicating to me that that's what he thought perhaps was some of the issues, especially since there was a lot of fragmenting, he said. So that's perhaps what he's thinking, especially that would kind of tie into with our previous losses and the type of embryos we were getting, and then the fracturing that was happening, is because I had quite a lot of like nearly always above 8 eggs. So it was like 9, 10, 11 eggs, but I knew for a fact follicle count wise would be much more than that, and yet they weren't getting eggs. He did also explain why he changed the trigger medication for me, and he did say that the usual trigger medication that I've previously used and I was initially prescribed is a pregnancy hormone based trigger. And with someone who is presenting with the amount of follicles I was, getting the pregnancy hormone or getting pregnant with my levels, especially of estrogen and that stuff being that high, that it was a greater indicator for OHSS, and that the pregnancy hormone can trigger that response, and worst case scenario can be deadly. Now obviously that wasn't the case, but if they weren't changing my previous triggers and I was overstimulated, that probably would partially explain why that pregnancy hormone in the trigger was also triggering an OHSS response. So that kind of made sense. Whether that's 100% what happened or not, we don't know. We can't go back in time. I'm not a professional. He wasn't in charge of that. But as for going forward, we're going to start me on, it sounds like 125 of the Gonal F. The rest of my protocol will probably look similar. All going well. And as long as I'm not being overstimulated, he doesn't see any reason to need to freeze at day 3, so that we would go ahead with a fresh transfer if that was the case, and the egg retrieval went ahead and was good in fertilization and all that kind of stuff. So that seems to be looking like it's going to go ahead, and for next round, which would be happening potentially starting in 2 or 3 weeks. Since then, I have started school. I ended up getting the second half of my first lecture, so I didn't miss everything, just the first half. This first week, there's no tutorials or anything, so I wasn't missing the tutorials. So yeah, I'm back at school. The workload already is pretty intense. Today's Thursday, so I just had the end of my 4th class because all 4 classes are squeezed into 3 days. So Wednesday's my crazy day where I have 2 classes. So I'm actually at school. Well, my class starts at 8:30, so I generally get there between 7 and 7:30. So I've got time to like prep and look over material and all that kind of stuff. I think I got there at 8 o'clock on that day. And it's supposed to go through till about 4:30 with tutorials and stuff, maybe 4:30, possibly 5. That's a long day at school. And then I have worship rehearsal on Wednesday nights. Anyway, the second Wednesday class actually was cut short. We didn't have the tutorial, so I was home by about 3:30. Then I had worship at 7, and that was a wonderful night. We were learning a new song, and I just felt like it went really well, so I was very excited about that. And then today's class was the one I was probably most nervous about, the one I feel like I have the most experience in, which is children and adolescents, or counseling in children and adolescents. But because it's the unit coordinator is the same as the one class I did really poorly at because of the test. The only reason I ended up passing and getting a credit, even though I technically failed the exam, was because my written assignment work was rated really well, and like I understood the topic well, and then the test was so badly written and told what to study for was so inaccurate to what the test was. It wasn't just me, the entire cohort complained and got it kind of assessed, but that unit coordinator is the same for this subject I'm doing today. Luckily, I could have a conversation with our lecturer. The lecturer is different to the unit coordinator, and that's been part of the problem, is that the unit coordinator wasn't actually teaching her own material a different teacher is trying to teach the unit coordinators content and slides exactly as they wrote it. Anyway, so I was able to have an actual conversation with her after the class and just let her know kind of my concerns and hopefully how to, I guess, better compile and what to study and what to internalize of the information presented in relation to it being applicable knowledge to the assignments, and then also what are they looking for us to be tested on material wise for the end exam.
Hi. It's I had a slightly stressful morning, but it's fine. We got it all worked out, and that's the main thing. So went off to our nurse's appointment this morning at the IVF clinic. For some reason I put it in my phone calendar as 10 a.m. when it was 10:30, and in my head I knew it was 10:30, but then I booked my psychology appointment for 10:45 because she needed to do it earlier rather than later, and now that I'm changing my days to Friday, that's kind of necessary. So then it was like only 15 minutes apart from each other, so which meant that we then had to chat and I had to drive separately, because then I have acupuncture at 2:00 and I've got to do some errands for my friend's baby shower in between then, and he's going to head off to work a bit later to get ready to do a pre or post survey, one of the two, before his next job next week. So we drove separately. I got there a bit early thinking, okay, if I get there at 10:00 or just before 10, then if they happen to be able to fit me in early, great. Chad's on my way just behind me a couple minutes, not a big deal. If it's not till 10:30, I figured I'd go in, sign the paperwork that I need to sign, because they sent all, instead of like the physical booklet they gave us last time, which I only just did the appointment, so I knew all of the information anyway, but they emailed us any updated material, so I had it all there. I was like, okay. They're like, review this and we'll talk to you soon. I'm like, great. So I rock up and they're like, didn't you know that all the appointments are via phone call right now? And I'm like, no. And I pulled up the email and I said, no, they sent me the paperwork, like, because they're like, well, everything's sent via that, and then you sign online, and we thought we were going to have to pay our bulk billing fee now. They're like, well, all payments are now over the phone. And we're like, she's like, I can't even take a payment from you right now. And because the COVID cases have ramped up, they've obviously moved everything what they consider unnecessary, like obviously bloods, ultrasound, surgery, that stuff all has to be done in person. Anything else they're trying to do online, so that there's less likely chance of having a close contact and having to shut down the clinic or the people doing the procedures which run the clinic, which all makes sense. But I wasn't told that it was moved to a phone consult. Anyway, so then they're just trying to be like, okay, so I was like, well, my husband's right behind me, and doesn't he need to be there? I'm like, does he have to be there for that appointment? If it's just on phone, I'm thinking, well, I've kind of double booked myself anyway, so maybe a phone consult here in the car before I walk in might work better. And at that stage, Chad just pulled up, so I'm like, can I just talk to him to work out what's going to be best? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. So anyway, there was a couple more back and forwarding, but actually what happened, the nurse came out, she saw me, Chad parked, came in. They ended up doing it a bit early because we were already there, and I was just going to be taking up time for a phone appointment later anyway, and she was able to actually get me in. So we just saw her, we talked through everything. The protocol is going to stay the same, as in the same types of medication, including the original trigger for this round. The only thing that's changing is the dose is going from 175 to 125. If I am not overstimulated, they're going to continue the plan of a double embryo at day 3, fresh transfer. And she did say that the embryologists are really good, as in they might advise like, hey, we actually think these ones would make it to day 5. Well, why don't we hold on to these ones where these might be better if they go in fresh at day 3. So they'll probably give us a better indication of what they think will be the best fit for us when it comes to transferring, that kind of thing. Sorry, I've got a notification here on my phone pop up. And so that all looks good going forward. So I already have all the medication. I will only need to go pick up orgalutran. I think I said it correctly that time. If I get to 5 days of orgalutran and run out, because I used 1 box out of the 2, but I only needed 1 box. So the plan is everything's organized and done. I will get sent DocuSign information to sign and update the information. And then we'll be good to go and call them on day 1 bloods, come in for day 2 for a blood test for this next cycle, and hopefully start day 3. That's the plan. I've got about 7 minutes, so I'm going to go get a cup of tea and go into my psychology appointment. And then acupuncture this afternoon. So